It's 3:17 in the morning and I'm staring at the ceiling again. The clock on the wall, yeah, I still have one of those analog ones that actually ticks, is doing that thing where every second sounds louder than it should, like someone tapping a fingernail directly against my skull. Tick. You're behind on bills. Tick. That client still hasn't paid. Tick. Remember that call from the hospital last Tuesday? Tick. You're supposed to be the strong one. Tick. Everyone's counting on you. Tick. What happens when you finally break? I used to think being responsible meant never letting anyone see you sweat. Growing up, I watched people around me fall apart and I decided somewhere along the way that I would be the one who held things together. The one who answered the phone at 2 a.m. when a family member was in crisis. The one who showed up to work with a smile even when my personal life was a dumpster fire. The one who said, "I'll figure it out," even when I had absolutely no plan, no resources, and no clue how I was going to make it to Friday. And for a while, that worked. Or at least it looked like it worked from the outside. I became really good at performing stability while internally I was running on fumes and caffeine and the kind of prayers that are less about faith and more about desperation. But here's the thing nobody tells you about being the strong one: eventually, your body keeps score. I started waking up at 3 a.m. for no reason, heart racing, mind already scrolling through every problem I had fallen asleep trying to escape. I remember one night specifically. I had just gotten off the phone with the hospital about my mom's test results, inconclusive, which somehow felt worse than bad news because at least bad news gives you something to fight against. Inconclusive just leaves you hanging in this awful limbo where your imagination gets to paint all the worst-case scenarios. I hung up, walked into my bedroom, closed the door, and just stood there in the dark. Didn't cry. Didn't pray. Didn't do anything except exist in this hollowed-out space between what I was pretending to be and what I actually felt. The loneliness was the weirdest part. Because technically, I wasn't alone. I had people around me, co-workers, friends, family members who called me for advice. But nobody was checking on me. Not because they didn't care, but because I had trained them so well to believe I didn't need checking on. I had built this reputation as the unshakable one, and now I was trapped inside it, crumbling quietly while everyone assumed I was fine. Have you ever felt that? Like you're drowning but everyone around you is just commenting on how well you swim. Pause right there. Because I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Not with me. With yourself. How long have you been pretending to be strong when you're actually exhausted? How many nights have you lain awake at 3 a.m. staring at a ceiling, running through problems you can't solve, bills you can't pay, conversations you can't have, and a future you can't control? How many times have you prayed and felt like the words just hit the ceiling and fell back down on your face? How many times have you asked God for a breakthrough and received nothing but silence? Because here's what I've learned. And I'm not saying this as someone who has it all figured out. I'm saying this as someone who still wakes up at 3 a.m. sometimes, who still has moments where faith feels more like a choice than a feeling. But I'm learning something that's changing everything for me, slowly, painfully, beautifully. And it started with one verse that I used to think was way too simple to actually work in real life. I was at a small group meeting, one of those gatherings where everyone sits in a circle holding coffee and trying to look spiritually put together. I was not spiritually put together. I was a mess. And this guy, someone I barely knew, came up to me afterward and put his hand on my shoulder. Didn't give me advice. Didn't try to fix me. Just said, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." I nodded like I understood. But inside, I was screaming. Be still? Are you kidding me? My mom's test results are inconclusive. My bank account is embarrassing. My job feels like it's held together with duct tape and wishful thinking. And you want me to be still? I went home that night and looked up the verse. Exodus 14 verse 14. And here's what struck me, it wasn't written to someone sitting in a peaceful meadow with a gentle breeze and a warm cup of tea. It was spoken to the Israelites when they were trapped between an army and a sea. They had Pharaoh's chariots behind them and an impassable body of water in front of them. There was no human way out. No strategic plan. No backup option. Just certain death on one side and impossible odds on the other. And into that absolute chaos, Moses says, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." I used to think stillness was passive. I thought it meant doing nothing. I thought it was weakness dressed up in spiritual language. But I'm starting to understand something different. Stillness is not the absence of action, it's the presence of trust. It's a deliberate choice to stop flailing, stop scheming, stop trying to control outcomes that were never in your hands to begin with. It's the moment you unclench your fists and admit, "God, I can't fix this. I can't manipulate this. I can't strong-arm this into working out. So I'm going to stop pretending I can, and I'm going to let you be God." That's a terrifying thing to do when you've built your entire identity around being capable. When your self-worth is tangled up in your ability to solve problems, the idea of being still feels like failure. It feels like giving up. But what if it's actually the most courageous thing you can do? I remember the exact moment my theology of stillness collided with real life. It was in a hospital parking lot at 7:42 in the morning, and the call had come 20 minutes earlier. My mom's test results weren't just inconclusive anymore. They were pointing towards something serious, something that had a name and a treatment protocol and a timeline that didn't care about my plans or my prayers or my desperate need for everything to be okay. I walked out feeling like someone had cut the rope. And for the first time in my adult life, I didn't have a plan. I couldn't fix this. I couldn't manipulate the outcome. I couldn't call the right person or work harder or strategize my way into a different diagnosis. I was completely, terrifyingly, devastatingly out of control. And in that moment, something broke open inside me. Not the kind of breaking that destroys you, but the kind that lets something real finally escape. And I whispered words that felt more like surrender than prayer. I can't do this anymore. I can't carry this. I can't fix this. So I'm asking you to do what I cannot do. That was it. And here's what happened next. Nothing. I mean, nothing dramatic. But inside me, something shifted. Something I can only describe as a stillness that didn't come from me. A peace that didn't make logical sense given the circumstances. The situation hadn't changed, but something in my soul had. And in that breathing, I began to understand something I had only known intellectually before. Stillness is not the absence of action. It is the presence of trust made tangible. But let me tell you what happened next, because this is where it gets real and where I need you to lean in close. The peace I felt in that parking lot didn't last. 3 days later, I woke up at 2:48 in the morning. I know the exact time because I looked at my phone, which is exactly what you're not supposed to do when you can't sleep, and the fear was back. Full force. My chest was tight. My mind was racing through worst-case scenarios like it was training for the anxiety Olympics. And I did the thing I had done 100 times before. I opened my banking app. Not because I needed to check my balance. Because I needed to control something. Anything. When life feels like a sinking ship, sometimes you grab the nearest thing that floats, even if it's just a number on a screen. Here's the mirror moment. You've done this too, haven't you? Maybe not the banking app specifically, but the thing. The thing you reach for when control slips through your fingers. The thing you check, or scroll, or eat, or drink, or plan, or obsess over because at least it's something you can manage. At least it's a problem you know how to solve. At least it gives your hands something to do while your heart is breaking. I wish I could tell you that one prayer of surrender fixed everything. But that's not how this works. Surrender is not a one-time event. It's a daily practice. Sometimes an hourly one. Sometimes you have to lay down the same burden 17 times before it finally stays on the altar instead of crawling back into your arms at 2:48 in the morning. That week, I started noticing something about myself. Every time I truly surrendered, really let go, peace would come. And then, slowly, subtly, almost without me noticing, I would pick the burden back up. I'd start thinking about it again. Researching. Planning. Trying to solve what I had already entrusted to God. It was like I kept saying, "Here, Lord, take this," and then 5 minutes later grabbing it back with a nervous smile like, "Actually, I'll handle this part." And that's when I started to understand Exodus 14 verse 14 differently. Because here's the context most people miss. When Moses said, "The Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still," the Israelites were not in a peaceful meadow having a quiet time. They were trapped. Behind them, the Egyptian army, the most powerful military force in the ancient world, was closing in. In front of them, the Red Sea, an impossible barrier. They had no weapons. No strategy. No backup plan. They couldn't go back. They couldn't go forward. They were completely, terrifyingly, devastatingly out of control. And into that chaos, Moses doesn't say, "Quick, figure out a plan." He doesn't say, "Start building boats." He doesn't even say, "Pray harder." He says, "Stand still and watch what God will do." The Hebrew word used there for, "be still," literally means to hold your peace, to be silent, to stop striving. It's not passive. It's a deliberate, active choice to stop your frantic efforts and fix your eyes on God. Here's the memorable truth I'm holding on to these days, and I want you to hold on to it too. Sometimes faith doesn't look like stepping forward. Sometimes it looks like standing still and believing that God is already parting waters you can't even see yet. That week, I started practicing something embarrassingly simple. Every morning, before I checked my phone, and I mean before, like, before my thumb could even reach for that screen, I would lie there in the dark and whisper, "God, today you fight for me. I'm going to be still." Some days I meant it. Some days I was just saying words and hoping the feeling would follow. But I kept doing it. I wrote the verse on a sticky note and put it on my bathroom mirror. I put another one on my fridge. I put one on my computer monitor at work. I needed reminders everywhere because my default setting is not stillness. My default setting is striving, fixing, controlling, worrying, and pretending I'm not doing any of those things. And when the anxiety would hit, because it did, over and over, I learned to do something that felt almost ridiculous at first. I would stop whatever I was doing and breathe. Just breathe. 3 slow breaths. And with each exhale, I would picture myself physically handing something to God. Not because the visualization has any power in itself, but because my body needed to participate in what my spirit was trying to learn. But then came the night when I hit the bottom of my own strength. Not the dramatic, crying on the bathroom floor kind of bottom. The quieter one. The one where you run out of tears because your soul is just too tired to produce them anymore. I opened my mouth, and instead of another desperate plea for God to fix things, something else came out. "Lord, I don't see what you're doing. I don't understand the delay. I don't know why this hurts so much. But I'm choosing to believe that you are fighting right now, even when my eyes can't track the movement." And then I said something I'd never said before, not because I didn't believe it theologically, but because I'd never been desperate enough to actually mean it. I surrender. Not because I'm giving up, but because I'm giving over. This battle is yours. The outcome is yours. The timeline is yours. I'm stepping out of the war room and into the waiting room, and I'm going to be still. I need you to hear this. The silence you're experiencing right now is not abandonment. It's an invitation. Exodus 14 verse 14 doesn't just promise that God will fight for you, it commands you to be still. And that stillness isn't passive resignation. It's active trust. It's the deliberate choice to stop your frantic striving and fix your eyes on the one who has never lost a battle. That night, I started declaring things I couldn't yet see. Lord, you are parting waters I can't even perceive yet. You are fighting enemies I don't even know exist. You are working while I am sleeping, while I am worrying, while I am wondering if you've forgotten me. And the more I spoke, the more something broke open inside my chest. Not the circumstances, but the fear. The control. The illusion that I was the one holding everything together. Let me lead you into this right now. Wherever you are, in your car, in your kitchen, lying in bed at 2 a.m., I want you to place your hand on your chest. Feel your heartbeat. That rhythm is proof that God is still sustaining you, even when your faith feels thin. Now take a slow breath. And another one. And as you exhale, I want you to release something specific. Lord, I release the battle in my mind, the obsessive thoughts, the worst-case scenarios, the replaying of conversations I can't change. I release the battle for my family, the people I love but cannot control, the situations I care about but cannot fix. I release the battle for my future, the fear of what's coming, the anxiety about finances, the uncertainty about health, the questions that have no answers yet. I release the battle for my identity, the lie that I am what I've done, what I've failed to do, what others have said about me, or what the enemy whispers in the dark. I release the battle for my purpose, the fear that I've missed my calling, that I'm behind in life, that everyone else has figured out what I'm still struggling to understand. Now, in the name of Jesus Christ, I want you to declare this with me. Not as empty words. Not as religious ritual. But as a decision of your will that your emotions will catch up to later. I reject the spirit of fear. It has no authority over my life. I reject the lie that I am alone. God is with me. I reject the deception that my prayers are hitting the ceiling. The Lord inclines his ear to me. I reject the despair that says nothing will ever change. My God is the God of resurrection, of breakthrough, of parted seas and collapsed walls and rolled away stones. And here is the truth I want you to carry out of this moment, the memorable truth that might just become an anchor for your soul in the days ahead. Your stillness is not a sign of God's absence. It is the evidence that you have handed the battle over to the one who has never lost a war. Now just rest here for a moment. Don't rush past this. Picture the first light of morning creeping through a window, soft, quiet, almost unnoticed at first. That's what the peace of God does. It doesn't always arrive with trumpets and fireworks. Sometimes it comes as gently as dawn, gradually pushing back the darkness until you realize you can see again. You can breathe again. You can hope again. As you step into this day, or this night, or this season, you are not walking in as someone who has to figure everything out. You are walking in as someone who is already covered. Already fought for. Already held. The battle that's been keeping you awake, the situation that's been consuming your thoughts, the weight that's been pressing on your chest, it is not yours to carry anymore. May the Lord bless your mind with clarity when confusion tries to cloud your judgment. May He bless your heart with peace that doesn't make sense, the kind that stands guard over your emotions when everything around you is chaotic. May He bless your home, every room, every relationship, every conversation that happens within those walls. May He bless your work, your efforts, your decisions, your interactions with colleagues and clients and strangers. May He bless your body with rest, with healing, with the kind of sleep that restores what stress has depleted. And now I want to invite you to do something simple but powerful. In the comments below, write these words: "The Lord is fighting for me today." Don't just think it. Write it. Type it out. Let your fingers participate in what your spirit is declaring. Because when you write those words, you're not just leaving a comment on a video. You're planting a stake in the ground. You're drawing a line in the sand. You're telling the enemy, and your own doubts, and the circumstances that have been screaming for your attention, this battle belongs to the Lord. And on the days when you forget, because you will, we all do, come back to that comment. Read your own words. Remember the decision you made today to stop fighting in your own strength and start resting in His. Amen. Now walk into this day knowing the battle is already won.